Okay, everyone, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all for being here today. I want to first just mention the agenda and then we'll get into it. So first, I'll just mention a few things that have been going on with City Council, in particular with COVID. And then we'll have Dr. NJ Akbar, our school board vice president and board 8 liaison, give uh, uh, his report as he has kindly done for our previous meetings. And then we will have some folks from our city Office of Integrated Development and Planning speak about speed bumps. And then we will have a presentation from our friends at ArtsNow about the Akron Cultural Plan, which has just been published. So getting into it, obviously, coronavirus has once again become, the very center of what we're focusing on. I think everyone knows that the city passed a mask requirement on Monday that, complements the governor's mask requirement in Summit County, but it would extend beyond, eventually we're going to fall out of that color range that the governor has. And I think the consensus of our Summit County Public Health Commissioner and other health officials is that it's still good to have that mask requirement beyond that point, because often, even if the cases are low, as we've seen, they can come back. And so I think until it will extend indefinitely, but we do want to remove it as soon as it's safe to do so. But really, it's not about harsh enforcement. It's about setting the rules of the road and the expectations. Most everyone, most folks are good law-abiding folks, but we do need, government has a responsibility to say, here's what we expect you to do. And if folks don't comply, there will be an education and awareness process, and there will be some civil penalties. But that's not the point. The point is just to say this with a clear voice. This is what we'd like you to do in our city. And we really are facing a strange time with coronavirus. It really is surging back in our city. Many of you probably saw the governor's address tonight where he spoke about it. I think he did a really good job of explaining the problem, right? He said this is a dire situation. Things are going quickly in the wrong direction. I think it's unfortunate that he did not take swift action. I think we need to obviously to encourage folks to perform their responsibility, but we also need to take, I think, more action than a statewide mask requirement, or potentially closures of bars or things like that would probably be prudent. So we'll have to see in the coming weeks. I'm sure there will be more, and it's as with all of this, we don't know where we'll be in a week or a month, but we, we are doing our best. Some people probably saw an article in the Beacon that showed that there was a pop-up testing a few weekends ago at the House of the Lord on the west side, and 4% of the people, 4.5% of the people who were tested positive. And so that shows that this virus is in our communities. And it's just because we're not seeing huge death totals does not mean it's gone. We've also continued a lot of discussions at City Council about policing. We are in the process of putting together a process by which both the City Council and the public can have continued discussions about concrete steps that we can take to resolve, to improve our systems of policing, but not just of policing, as we talked about at the last meeting, some of you are at, also of public safety, right? The police are one important part of public safety, but our neighbors make safe communities. Our community groups make safe communities. All of our parts of our society make safe communities. So we want to have more conversations about that as we discussed last meeting. So at this point, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. NJ Akbar from our school board. everyone has, I think, been following the news about, how APS and how the state is going to reopen schools in the fall, and, to what degree and under what conditions, and it's different for different grade levels. So I really appreciate NJ being here, and hopefully being able to shed a little bit of light on that. I know it's obviously a very fluid situation. So
Yes, hello. Thank you very much, Shamus, for inviting me, and thank you to everyone who's here. I think everyone shares with me and others the concern of um, rushing a decision to open schools and to not think those all the different ramifications that that would be on all of us, and the impact that that would have, especially thinking about the governor's uh, uh, notification today that we're definitely heading in the wrong direction, unfortunately, around maintaining this. So I want to share with you, I'm not sure how many of you listened to our meeting on Monday. I want to share with you a few of the decisions that we have to make coming up pretty soon about our schools. And so Dr. Ellen McWilliams Woods, our assistant superintendent, and Pat Shipe, the president of our Akron Education Association, which is our teachers union, gave a presentation on the reopening plans. And there's been multiple committees and over 150 staff members who have been on these committees. And there's 5 decisions that as a board we have to consider and make moving forward. The first decision is around the school model. It was presented to have a blended model where you have K through second grade, 5 days a week, and grades 3 through 8 would be 3 days a week, I believe it was. And then the high schoolers would be 1 definite day a week and the option of having 1 or 2 additional days. Uh, those are the models. And with all of it, there's 100% remote model offered for anybody who wants to take it. And so that's an option that we're considering. We're also considering a decision around number of students we want to allow on buses. Our buses currently hold 66 students when you consider 3 students to a seat, which is the typical way that our buses are ran. We know with coronavirus, 3 students to a seat is probably not best practice. And so we're considering 22 students on a bus or 44 students on the bus. And 44 students on a bus would have 2 students in a seat, and 22 students on the bus would have
2 students in an aisle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
2 students per seat in the aisle, yes. And then 22 students would have on the bus would have 1 student per seat, per aisle, basically. And so that poses some challenges with the number of buses we have in our fleet, the number of bus drivers we have in our district. And so that poses a potential problem. We also have a decision to make whether we're going to mandate all face masks. I personally think that the city mandating face masks makes that decision a little bit easier to make. And then the 4th decision is whether to waive uniform requirements for the school year for our students, and to go back to a dress code policy, which was enforced a few years ago before the uniform policy was adopted. And then the 5th decision is around adding additional prep days for teachers, which would delay the start of school by a week. And so I'll stop there briefly. I have 2 more things I want to say, but I would like to get your feedback on those 5 things that I shared, knowing that I've heard from many of you and others on all ends of the spectrum. I've heard from people stating that they want all level of schools in school full time, the whole year round. I've heard that we should do 100% remote. And I've also heard we should try to figure out how to do all students with some type of blended learning. And so I want to hear what your thoughts are.
Yeah, so folks, if you have a comment or a thought or a question, if you could just raise your hand on the video, or please put any comments in the chat and we'll try to address them. Does anyone have a comment or a thought to what NJ just presented? Okay, it looks like not. Is there anything else, NJ, that you'd like to share?
Yes, so I also want to share that, I think that this, oh, someone did ask a question, sorry. It says, why would the uniform requirements be waived? Okay, so I'm not sure who that was, but SJBEIS, how you doing? Okay, I see you. So one of the main reasons why uniforms would be waived is around the cost factor. A lot of parents already demonstrate that they have a financial barrier for conforming with the uniform policy currently. There are also families who have had issues with keeping them clean because they only have a limited number of options for their students. So they may have 1 or 2 options. And so, as you know, kids get dirty all the time. And if you don't wash their clothes every day, which is hard if you're working multiple jobs to do that, that could pose an issue. So all of those things are potential issues. And I'll just say personally, I'm against uniform policies in general, not dress codes, but uniforms, because it demeans students in some ways around choice of their attire, and it could be cultural aspects and all of that.
Thanks, NJ. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
Okay, so yeah, so what I was going to say is I've heard from a lot of people around this decision to reopen. I've also heard a lot about the impacts of COVID that's having that parents and families are having, and what decisions and different decisions they're having to make, and being laid off or losing their jobs, and what kind of impact that's having on their families. And so when you think about that, coupled with the fact the district has right-sized its footprint as far as our buildings are concerned and the number of seats we even have available to us, it becomes very difficult to create an environment where we are able to socially distance in the district and have everyone in school fully. So that is likely not an option unless everyone's willing to forego the social distance parameters, which I'm not necessarily in support of, because I think that creates a greater public health crisis on our hands. This other thing that I'll say is the board is also tackling the potential of a levy, and I wanted to open up for any questions around that. On Monday, we have a finance committee, and it might end up becoming a full board committee where we'll talk through different potential options for a potential levy in November. So, or even sometime in the future. So I wanted to just open it up for any feedback and comments on the potential of putting a levy on the ballot in November.
Are there folks who have thoughts or feedback? I know just from my perspective, Obviously this was I think a conversation that was going on before COVID, and obviously COVID has put a huge question mark on that, and just in terms of we don't even know in November, where we'll be, but I know the school board has been discussing it, and that was the big thing that you guys had to discuss, and now there's this other huge big thing that comes sooner. So I hope
Right.
that I'm sure we'll obviously continue discussing it on our meetings. We're always appreciate you coming. So if you could put your email in the chat, NJ, and then anyone can reach out. I know a couple of people have reached out to me with concerns about education, and I've sent them along because I just I obviously this is not where city council is focused, although it obviously is very important, and the school board is. I think you guys are having some marathon sessions about it.
Yes, that 4.5 hour meeting on Monday was quite exhilarating.
Yeah, well, you were built for it. Um, but anyways, I appreciate it, NJ, and now we will move on
Well,
to.
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry. I'm
Sure.
not sure if I'm not sure if anyone had any questions, but one thing I do want to add just to your comments, and I
Yeah.
want to thank Lisa for her appreciation in the chat. But if you think about whether we go on the ballot in May or not, I just want to express to
Wait,
everyone that
November, right? You said May.
I'm
Next
sorry.
May, or?
I don't even know what month it is anymore. Um, if we do go on the ballot in November, um, that even if we don't, let's say we don't, right? The financial situation that we're in, even with the CARE Act money, we have an increased level of spending that has happened due to COVID, as well as we were already projected to deficit spend this year and then next year. And because we've right-sized the district over the last few years, that has allowed us to have about $80 million of a surplus. But after 2022, all of that will be gone, as well as we will be operating in far beyond the red. And so I just want to say that that also means that, unfortunately, if we don't tackle it now, we'll have to tackle it at some point. And if we do open schools, we'll have even more increased costs for daily temperature checks, for masks, for cleaning supplies, for hand sanitizer. All that is going to be above and beyond what we normally have to spend. So I am just my personal projection. This is not something I've received as insider information, but just knowing those things, that's going to probably push that 2-year cycle closer to a 1.5-year cycle. So it is something that we need to address either by reducing force or by passing a levy. Unfortunately, those are the main two options we have, and I don't necessarily like either one of them, but one of them we do have to move forward with.
Sure. Well, I really appreciate it, and Jay, as always. And like I said, please reach out if folks have further questions via email. Also, I know in that same vein, the University of Akron announced some pretty substantial cuts today. I think right around 180 faculty and staff were let go, in addition to 90 folks who resigned to try to help, their departments forego cuts. So I saw the names of some folks I know on the list of early retirements, and it's tough. So all across our city institutions, we're trying to figure out how to do more with less, and it's each institution has its own challenges, but some of them are similar. At this point, I'm going to bring in our one of our development managers from the Office of Integrated Development, Michelle DeFiore, who is going to speak with us about a new program. The city is piloting 2 locations of speed tables this summer and fall, and it's a lot of people reach out to me about traffic safety and reach out to all the council members in the city, And I know I've heard from many of you guys about this. So this is one way the city is looking to try to test something new about traffic safety. So I'll turn it over to you, Michelle.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all tonight. As Shauna said, one of the complaints we receive a lot in the city is about the speed of traffic. And we worked with AMATS, and Curtis Baker is on the call as well, to look at locations. We looked at them with the Akron Police Department and their data that they received from their speed trailers. And we looked at 25 locations across the city to determine where it might be best to place these tables and get some good data. So some of the complaints that we get are, you know, if a speed table is put on this street, does the traffic go to an adjacent street? So that's a concern. Does it turn away from that, from the street that they generally speed on, and then you know, move to a new street? So we're collecting data right now to determine that. The two locations that we ended up selecting based on looking at 25 were Schocalog and Edgewood by the zoo. So Schocalog, we're looking at installing 2 tables in sequence between Ridgewood and the I-77 bridge. And we'd had a call last week with the Fairlawn Heights Neighborhood Association to start getting feedback on that.
Here,
And
you can see it right there. I have it pulled up. Can folks see it? Okay.
so this is one of the you know, locations that were looked at with a high level of speed that was about 37 miles per hour. Was some of the speeds that we were seeing there. So we're looking to reduce the speed based on that. And then Edgewood, I think those speeds were slower, but one of the things we're looking at is, does the traffic then move on to the parallel street, which is Rhodes? So we're looking at collecting the data. We saw that last fall, Lakewood did a similar pilot. So what you do is you place this essentially rubberized table. It's about 18 feet by 18 feet, and it fits a full car on it. So it's not just a speed bump that's in a parking lot. Your entire car gets raised as it goes off, so it will slow you down. They are in Lakewood. It's interesting. They're in a residential neighborhood, and you do slow down when you come up on them. So these are rubberized tables. We're, you know, potentially looking to place them for 2 months and then see how they go. Lakewood ended up leaving them in. They left them in through the winter. They said they worked fine with their snowplows. So that's potentially an option as well. So I think, Curtis, do you have any update on when they might get installed, when they might be manufactured?
Yeah, so our hope is that they're going to be starting manufacturing in the next week or so. It's supposed to take about 4 weeks for them to be manufactured. And when we work with the city to get them down, we're still kind of circling a mid-August date, I think is hopeful, but if not, probably for sure by the 1st of September, we would have, and these, you know, in Schocalog, there will be 2 locations. And the idea is that it really helps create a slowdown throughout that whole corridor versus just one spot where someone goes over it and then can speed away.
Thank you both so much. I really appreciate you coming on and talking about this. And I had heard, I know that it's been something that's been worked on for, you know, at least since the beginning of the year and probably before. And so, you know, I think it's an exciting new thing. I think I've said this before, when it comes to traffic safety, I think it's going to be solved by like all of the above, you know, thing. It's going to be a menu of options, and you know, what works on Castle is going to be different from what works on Schocalog or what works on Rhodes or what works on Edgewood. But there are a lot of different tools, and I'm really glad that we're looking into these. Do folks have questions for Michelle or Curtis? If you want to raise your hand or put them in the chat.
You know, one thing I will mention is that we did, if you'll see when you're on the neighborhood, you'll actually see, and actually I see a question about collecting speed data. AMATS owns what's called radar counters. They're about 8 inches wide, like about this big, that tall. They're white boxes. You're probably going to see those around the neighborhood as we put them places to count around Schocalog, as well as we did Ridgewood, and we're going to do some of the neighborhood streets. These radar counters actually beam, you know, the radar hits the car as it goes by and it collects the speed. And we did actually put those counters out this last week and pick them up. And so just if you're curious, Schocalog north of Stockbridge, we have the average speed there being 33.74 miles per hour. The max speed was actually 67 miles an hour on Schocalog. The 85th percentile speed, which is basically the speed that is used in studying traffic, that's the one that you want. You want people going slower on the 85th percentile, is actually 39 miles an hour. So, and that's as of last week. It's actually faster than what the police had been recording. I think it's because our boxes are a lot more nondescript. So it's not like when you see a police trailer and you drive by. And so that's, and Ridgewood, we saw the same thing, 39 miles per hour for the 85th percentile, 66 miles per hour max, and a 34.34 mile per hour average in that location. So there is definitely speeding going on, and it's speeding that's being done in places where we want to create safer environments. And I think, like the councilman said, the speed table is just sort of one tool for that. And we think it'll work well in this location.
I think in Lakewood, they also put them in series, and they slowed it down to like 20 miles an hour. They really dramatically slowed the speed. They force you to slow down because you really just don't want your car going over that speed table fast.
And so it looks like we have a few questions in here. You know, in terms of how they slow down the car, you know, it's sort of an elongated thing. And so, you know, it is a similar bump to a speed bump, but it's just longer. And so you really, like you said, you really do have to slow down once you go over it. Can you guys talk a little bit about the cost and if there's going to be signage associated with this?
Yeah, so for the cost, the tables themselves cost a little less than $5,000 a piece. AMATS, so not the city of Akron, but AMATS actually gets federal funding to buy transportation, to do transportation planning. And so we're using our funds to buy these. The nice thing about them is that if we think they don't work, or if the city wants to put in something permanent later, we can bring these up and move them to other locations. So they're meant for us to be a temporary thing, but as Michelle mentioned, they could stay in longer. And Michelle, I don't know if you want to take the signs question, as the city is taking responsibility to do all the signage plan for the entire project.
Yeah, our traffic engineering department is working on the signage plan for it to make sure that there's advanced warning. In Lakewood, they actually really just have a hump sign right at the hump. I would say there's not. I'd like to see further advanced warning. Our traffic engineering department is coming up with what is required. There's a whole, what's called a manual of uniform traffic control devices. So that gives all of the guidance for the signage.
That's great. I think Greg Dunham had a question about EMS. I believe the city service department, which does the plowing and street cleaning, and also fire department have been involved in these discussions. That's right?
That's correct. And the buses as well. So we looked at 25 locations across the city. You know, you try to avoid bus routes. You try to avoid, we were looking at one near Maple Street, and you know, there's a fire station right there. So that was not like the preferred location to start off with the pilot. Speed limit needs to be posted at 25 miles per hour. So, you know, then you run into a situation where it's not 25. We were running into streets that had been resurfaced last year, so we didn't want to damage a newly resurfaced street. What else did we run into? Streets that were 4 lanes wide. So there's just all kinds of different criteria that we're forced to, you know, narrow it down. And we wanted to do it in a residential area.
Yeah.
And I guess the one other thing I'd like to add, and I know this isn't a question, I apologize, but AMATS we're going to be sending residents a letter about it, but we're also going to have a website that we're going to advertise to all of you guys that it'll be able to take survey data, and we'll also be able to receive comments about, hey, we think these would work in location A, B, or C. So our goal is to actually get neighborhood feedback throughout the process of this test, because we're going to continue to collect data after we put the tables in to see if we get a reduction. And we'll continue to share that at ward meetings or any other appropriate meetings as we kind of piece together a report about how well this works out for this particular area.
Thank you, Curtis and Michelle. Curtis, I should have done it at the beginning, but do you want to explain, in case folks don't know, the difference between the city and AMATS?
Yeah. So I don't want to bore people, but AMATS is basically a regional transportation planning agency, and we work in Summit and Portage County. We work very closely with the city, as they are sort of our biggest member. But what our role really is to do is to not only do transportation planning, but also fund transportation projects. So when you pay your federal gas tax money, gas tax is, there's a state gas tax and a federal gas tax. The part of the federal comes back to the urban area, and it comes to AMATS, and we're able to use that money to invest in our communities through everything from sidewalks to bike trails to bus purchases to roadway resurfacing. So we're very involved with the city in doing those types of things. And, we're really excited for this, because safety, all we're seeing right now, especially in the pandemic, is we're seeing speeds going up. There's less cars on the road and people are driving faster. And what's scary is that our crashes aren't going down. So even though we know there's fewer people on the road, we're still kind of flatlining on crashes, where in theory the crashes should also be going down. But that's not happening. So we're very invested in stuff like this.
Thank you. Linda Marston, did you have a question? Here we go. 1 second. Let me unmute you. Can you, oh, sorry, one more time. Can you click it just one more time? There you go.
Our question was answered. We put it into the chat. It was about the cost.
Okay.
So thank you, Shamus.
Let's see. There were a couple other questions to Tom Ginder. I will get you that link for comments from Jack. So where it's only where the speed limit is 25. I believe the speed limit is 25 on that portion of Schocalog, and I think that's part of the consideration. I think Schocalog was maybe #1 on that list of those top 25 locations. And then our school buses, okay with them? Were there discussions with Akron Public Schools?
You know what? Thank you for bringing that up. We will be following up with them.
Okay. Great. And let's see.
And there was a comment about the link for AMATS, the comment period. We don't have that available yet, but we will make it available to you.
Yeah, and the comment period is going, as soon as we get the website up, which we actually have kind of built for the to go up later this week, it will just be open until we remove the speed tables or decide, so we'll have, it's not like you only have a week to comment before or after, or the goal is to get it up there and keep it up there.
And so I think that's all the questions. If there's something that we missed, please just send me a message and let me know, and I'll work on getting that answered. I really appreciate you both being here. I really appreciate both of you working on this. And I know other people have been working on this as well. And, hopefully this is something that if it goes well, we can potentially, it's a pilot project, so hopefully that we can expand it if it proves fruitful. I know it has in Lakewood.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So now I will turn it over to our friends at ArtsNow, nonprofit focused on arts and culture in Akron. Let's see. so let me just give a little bit of introduction here. ArtsNow spent the last 2 years working on a cultural plan that really is supposed to be a document that sets a guide for how Akron arts and culture should go over the next into the future, into the long future. And so this involves significant community engagement and study, and it really focused on particular equity in the arts. And so to talk more about it and to talk about a little bit about the Akron Public Arts Commission, which is going to be a new part of the city government, which is going to work on funding public art, we have two wonderful people. We have Nicole Mullett, who's the executive director of ArtsNow, and we have Dominic Moore-Dunstan. And Dominic, in addition to being an amazingly talented dancer, is also a Firestone grad and a soccer teammate of my little brother. So I will let you guys take it from here. Let's see, here we go. There you go.
Okay, thanks, Shauna. Thank you, everyone. We're so grateful and excited to be here to talk about some pretty substantial work that I hope a number of you have been involved in. I'll give you a little bit of a history lesson, and then Shamus, if you don't mind throwing those slides up, we'll kind of go through that.
Sure.
ArtsNow came into existence in 2015 after a pretty robust countywide assessment on arts and culture. Two funders, GAR and the Knight Foundation, were very interested in learning whether or not their investments in arts and culture were being fully realized relative to economic prosperity and things that we were seeing in other communities. We were watching to our north in Cleveland an enormous amount of downtown investment, people moving into the city, largely because of the resources around public funding and the downtown. And we were watching to our south as downtown Canton was being reimagined. And so the funders wanted to understand whether or not the community was seeing the value of arts and culture and how that was impacting individual lives. So at that point, they went through a 2-year process. So in 2013, they contacted and they held focus groups across the county, talked to a whole bunch of folks about what arts and culture means to them. And at the end of that time, it was decided that an organization was needed to focus truly on wake up every day and think about the sector as a whole. And when I talk about the sector, I'm talking about individual artists, which Dominic is here to talk about and represent as a proud APS Firestone grad, but also as one of my board members. So if anything I say, doesn't ring true or is in trouble, you can get me in trouble with Dominic whenever you need to. And so ArtsNow was created in July of 2015. Almost immediately in 2016, early on in Mayor Horgan's tenure, he contacted us and wanted to have a conversation about how he could see what more art in the city would look like with more access to more people. So more art in more places for more people. And with this idea that our community, our kids are at their very best when everyone has access to arts and culture. And when everyone understands the culture that is inherent in our neighborhoods that's already there, right? If you're singing in the church choir or you're using the metro parks in the national park, that's all an experience that makes Akron such a very special place to be. So we kind of took a deep dive into that. After some research and a deeper understanding and lots of conversations around how we might get some resources for this, we came back to Mayor Horgan and GAR and Knight Foundation with a proposal for establishing a cultural plan, which essentially is for municipalities like Akron to determine what success looks like, where the community members, and I want to make this part really clear, we didn't just ask arts and culture folks, we wanted the community as a whole to feel as though arts and culture were part of their life and were meeting needs. And so we in late 2018, early 2019, were able to actually start the formal process, although the work predates that rather substantially. So with your permission, I'm going to take you through a couple slides that will kind of help to explain what we're doing, and I'm not going to read to you. So this goes over what a cultural plan is, and what the city hopes to achieve with it. And I will say again, a cultural plan, and Akron is unique in this, a lot of times municipalities will own cultural plans. So they'll own all of the results, and that can be limiting because cities and municipalities can only do so much. In Akron, we had so many partners come to the table, from residents to other nonprofits to government to individual private businesses, that this truly became a plan for Akron and with Akron. And so we're really proud of the work that Akron put into this. And I believe we're going to see other cities try to emulate this. We know they can't, but they should try. And that's a wonderful thing. Shamus, you can go ahead for me. I never thought I would get to have direct Councilman Malik here, so this is wonderful for me. One of the things that we discovered early on was that the community was telling us, so before we even started the process, we did over 100 interviews. And what the community said very strongly was that if you're not going to make equity a priority, we don't want you to do it. Just don't bother. We want to make sure that at its core, when we're talking about arts and culture, we're not just talking about a certain group of people, but that truly everyone is going to have access, and that it doesn't matter what your ability, your background, that arts and culture is for you. So early on, we made sure that we had a statement put together, and that threads throughout all of the other work. So whatever we did relative to the plan, we kept our eye on this North Star of, we want to make sure that all of Akron's residents, regardless of age, regardless of where they live, have access to arts and culture. Shamus? These are the guiding principles that the steering committee put into place early on. Again, these were things that we wanted to make sure that the process itself was going to honor. So these are things that the committee said, if we're going to do this, we need to make sure that these are priorities for us, and at all times we try to honor the voices that are contributing, and that these are going to be things we want to see in the plan. Councilman, thank you. So this gives you a quick snapshot of what happened. We went through a discovery phase where we talked to a whole lot of people. We had a cultural planning committee of over 31 folks from across the city, from a bunch of different backgrounds and expertise. And we talked to over 150 people before we even started the planning process, because we wanted to make sure that however we developed the planning process, it was equitable, it was smart, it was specific to Akron. We didn't want to just emulate something that another city had done. The second phase was listening, which we did a lot of. We tried very hard not to be the ones speaking in the room. We tried to make sure that we were at all points really listening. This isn't about my opinion about arts and culture in our community. It's not about, Stan Hewitt's opinion about what you should appreciate. This was about the community, and we needed to make sure that we were not the ones talking the most. Although you're stuck with me talking right now, but you're all handling it beautifully, so I really appreciate it. So in addition to that, we had 27 focus groups all across the the city. We made sure that we were going into neighborhoods, that we were talking to neighborhood leaders, to what I started calling neighborhood mayors. We all have them. The person who knows everything that's going on and who can take care of people and whose house is constantly like this influx of people moving in and out. And we made sure that their voices were here. The third is review. We went through 5 rounds of public feedback. So what that looked like was us kind of laying everything out. So we would come up with these are what we're hearing your priorities are. We would share them with the community, and the community would say, yes, on this one, no, not over here. You didn't hit what we were talking about. You need to change this. We did that 5 times, both physically and virtually, so that people would have the ability to share. And yes, Shamus, you can move on. I was reading quickly. At the end of that time, the priorities that you see before you were the ones that our community, our neighbors, friends, and family decided were the most important. Underneath each of these, there are different ideas on how we might accomplish them. But at the end of the day, my North Star, your North Star, should you choose to engage and participate in the plan, which we hope you will, is that these are our goals. We believe that if Akron considers talent development of our artists and our creative community a priority, and our residents are making an investment of time and energy and thought leadership behind that, that Akron will be better for it. We believe that if we invest in our young people and that we make sure that our cultural organizations are truly here for them and for the community we serve, that Akron will be better. There's lots of ideas in the plan, but it's a 15-year plan. And if 2020 has done anything for us, it has shown us that we cannot predict the future. And so we're going to be sure that we're being really flexible. This is a living document. Tomorrow or tonight, you could have an idea that significantly and importantly impacts public art in this city that the groups that we had in the past year didn't come up with. That's wonderful, because at the end of the day, we want more public art in Akron, and how we get there is going to be dependent on the residents and the partners that we have, if that makes sense. If it doesn't, put it in the chat, and then in all capital letters, and then I can address it later. Forward together. So a plan for action has been put forward. We want to make sure this is, if you would like to engage, this is what we're asking of you. Look at the strategies. Tell me what you're already doing. Maybe your church has an after school program that allows kids to make art 5 days a week. That's excellent. That is advancing the education goal, and it's also advancing the engagement. Let's celebrate that. Let's talk about the things that we're already doing that are excellent, that the rest of the community should be celebrating along with us. Engagement, make sure that you're thinking about our local arts and culture sector. And if this will be I'm a recovering teacher, so I always have to give some kind of assignment or directive. This would be something I would ask you to do, is maybe go outside your traditional, what is considered normal to you. So if you always hit Stan Hewitt every year for the lights, this year maybe try the zoo, which also has over 1 million lights that are up every year. So try to stretch yourselves a little bit and take advantage of what we have. Advocacy, always making sure that our friends and colleagues like Shamus in positions that are elected and who can make some decisions, make sure that they know that we care about the arts, that we understand that it's an economic driver, that we understand that more people in our city means more money for things that we want to see happen. Resources, we want to be really clear that in order to execute the plan, resources are going to be needed, both in terms of time and energy, and that's all of our responsibility. And then partnership, making sure that wherever you fall, whether you're a leader, a resource leader, a key change maker, or a supporter, that we're carrying this work forward together. So one of the worst things that can happen is if this becomes ArtsNow's plan. If I had sat down a year ago today and developed a cultural plan by myself in isolation, it would not have been this good. Akron came out and told us what they wanted, and we need to honor that. And that means my type A needs to take a back seat and make sure that we're helping to push forward what the community cares about. Councilman?
Did you want me to pull up the website?
For public art?
Yeah.
Is there another screen, or is that it?
I think that's it. There's 7
Okay,
slides.
then yes, if you don't mind, Shamus, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
One of the reasons that I'm here tonight is I want to talk about the 10th priority, which is public art. We heard pretty strongly that public art is very important to people, but the challenge that folks gave to us was, we love public art, we want to see more of it because we value beautiful public spaces, but if it's not spread across the city, if it all resides in downtown or in one area, that's not what we're talking about. We want to make sure that this is in our neighborhoods, and we want to have a voice in what comes into our neighborhoods. So Shamus is going to pull up a website that I would urge you to just consider. So here's my pitch. one of the things that we've established is going to be a commission for public art. This is going to be a group of residents who live in Akron, who care about public spaces, and who would like to see. Shamus, have you pulled it up, or are we?
I'm doing my best. It's
okay. No, you're fine. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't one of those moments where you were the only one seeing what we were hoping all of us was seeing, which happened to me twice today on Zoom, so it's okay. So what I would challenge you to do is think about whether or not this commission might be something that you would be interested in submitting your name for. And before you immediately turn your head and say, no, this isn't for me, I want to tell you, we are not just looking for artists. We are not just looking for the Dominics in the world. We need engineers. We want to make sure that any sculptures that go in place are safe, and that they're going to be someplace and grounded in a way that is going to make the community better.
Can you see it now, Nicole? Sorry.
It is. It's perfect.
Okay.
We need engineers. We need educators. We believe that public space can be a place for our kids to learn. I can give you some really fun examples of that from the past year, but we need educators. We need you. We need people who care about their communities and want to have a voice in what that looks like. So when you go to akronpublicart.com, the gray button, Shamus, Councilman, if you would be so kind. This is an opportunity for you to submit your name to serve on the commission. And if it is of interest, I hope that you will consider it. If this isn't for you, but you want to be involved in the cultural plan, please reach out to me. We want to find a place for you to do good work and to celebrate what you're already doing. The important thing to note about the Public Art Commission, which I realize is probably makes sense to everyone, is that by serving on the commission, you can't receive money from the commission. So you would, if you're an artist, you would be stepping back and saying, this is my service. I'm going to give this to the community, but I'm not going to be able to access public dollars or public land. And again, those are the only two things this impacts. If you have a private business, you can put up on your walls and engage the arts community in whatever way is best for you, and we encourage you to do that. This is certainly a process you can avail yourself of if you don't want to go through artist selection, but that's up to you. For public land or public property, or public dollars, this is the way that we're going to be moving forward, which is going to be really determined by the commission. And so, go ahead, Councilman.
No, I was just going to say, sorry to interrupt, but I was just going to say, City Council approved this Public Art Commission, not this past Monday, but the Monday before. And I think it's something everyone's really excited about. We're going to have, instead of the city and, the levels of bureaucracy making all the decisions about who's going to fund public art, we're going to take 9 citizens from across the city who are, some are artists and some won't be artists, and have them help make recommendations and also just share their expertise. And so, it's really, I think one of the great things that one of the best parts of government is when we have a chance to really get as many community members engaged in the process as possible. And so that's what this is about. So I hope you can help participate. And if you we'll put Akron Public Art in the chat, but if you can go there, if you go to the bottom, you can sign up for the newsletter. You'll get more information. You'll learn about the cultural plan, and you'll be able to read the document. And Nicole, if we can also put a link to the document itself in there, I think that'd be helpful. And but I'll turn it over to you. Sorry.
No, Shamus, that was actually beautifully done, and you gave me an opportunity to take a sip of my tea, which I was needing after saying so many words. So I'm going to put the link so that you can both download and watch a video, and look through the priorities into the chat here. I am technology deficient, but I can at least make that happen. It is a downloadable document. It is, as one would expect, aesthetically pleasing because we are from the arts. So I hope you enjoy looking through it as much as we enjoyed creating it. At this point, I want to give voice to Dominic Moore-Dunson, who is not only a fantastic board member, which I'm not just saying because he's here and he could fire me, but also because he truly is. and a passionate advocate for the planning process that was used, and have him speak a little bit from an artist's perspective about why and how we went about the work. Dominic?
Give me 1 second here. Probably need to mute. There we go.
Okay, hey everybody. So one of the things that's really, really important, and Nicole touched on this a little bit, but the fact that diversity, equity, inclusion, and access are the foundation of this plan and how it worked. It wasn't how we see most things kind of happening in our country, where DEIA are kind of like put on top, like a cherry on top of something that's finally done. This was a part of the ingredients of how this thing was made. And that's something that's very, very rare in our country to happen in general, but unfortunately also in arts and culture. So I think that as you read through the plan, really take in the fact that this is a city and this is a process that was done in a way that was trying to represent as many people as possible. So as an artist, I just wanted to kind of talk about kind of the direct effect of this plan on someone like me. Just tell you guys, in respect for time, I'll tell you a really quick story about myself. So I, like Councilman said, I graduated from Firestone High School, and while I was in Firestone High School, I was in the dance department, and I graduated from the performing arts department there. But that's not where my public school arts experience started, right? It started in elementary school at Robinson Academy, taking the arts classes and the music classes, and eventually, because I was dancing outside of school, I actually went to Miller South Visual and Performing Arts as well. And there, I started dancing in school in 4th grade. So from 4th grade to 12th grade, I was dancing every day in school, getting this incredible education with this incredible infrastructure in arts education. And then I graduated in 2008, which unfortunately was also the beginning of the recession. And what happened was, because there wasn't an infrastructure for arts and culture to support people like me in the city, it caused me to have to leave the city in order to have a career in the thing I'd been training to be since I was 8 years old. And a lot of people that me and Shamus went to school with have had to do the same thing, right? We call it creative brain drain in the Midwest, and Akron can be example A of that. And many of those, our friends, never came back. And fortunately, I only went 45 minutes north to Cleveland, go to a dance company, and to learn all the things I could learn. And eventually I got good enough to create my own art and bring it back to Akron and really start building something here. But I think what I'm so excited about with this particular plan is it makes the experience of kids who go through Miller South to Firestone, for example, different, because they leave high school and there's a world in this city built for them to succeed. There is a place for them to feel like they're wanted, and there's a place for them to feel like they fit in. Because in 2008, I know there's nowhere I could go in the city where I would fit in. I mean, even to this day, I could count on one hand how many professional dancers are in the city, right? So we have a lot of work to do there. But, so I'm going to have a baby by August 12th, my first one. And this is a 15-year plan. So in 15 years, they could be at Firestone High School, maybe as an artist. Knowing, and as a father, knowing that 4 years from that moment, they could walk out into the city and be creative here and have a whole career here and have a family here. And that's really, really important, because a lot of my friends who left and went to New York, I paid $700 to live in a ranch house. They pay $700 to live in a closet, right? And you have to really, when you're an artist, you have to take all of that into consideration. And what this plan says is that the community cares about keeping us here. And that makes a lot of us feel really, really, really good, because we understand that if people like you invest into arts and culture, invest into this plan, become a part of this plan, it allows us to invest back into you. And then there's this reciprocating relationship that also adds to our population, which we all know is a thing that we're trying to do here. And the more creativity that we can keep in the city, I don't think it's crazy ambitious to say that in terms of per capita, we could rival a city like Chicago.
Thank you, Dominic. I don't want to cut you off, but that was amazing. And I think it really speaks to the story you shared speaks to the fact that we have so many incredibly talented people here, and that are because of the institutions like Akron Public Schools that have helped germinate and support all of this talent that we have in folks. And I knew this back when I was in high school, but Dominic is like a world-class dancer, right? Anyone who's seen him dance, he's a world-class dancer. And we have people who are, we have world-class guitarists, and we have world-class painters, and we have amazing folks. And this plan is really a thought, sometimes in city government and in society, we're just rushing to get to the next thing. This plan is really a great example of pausing everything and saying, what do we want 10, 15 years to look like? And, and you scooped me a little bit, Dominic, on talking about being a father. Congratulations. I know it's coming soon, and really excited for you and Ashley. But I also wanted to take a second just to thank you, Nicole. Nicole is one of the kindest people I've met in the city of Akron. And we're so lucky to have her involved in this kind of work. And particularly, I just wanted to say on a personal level, the kindness that she showed me is part of the reason why I'm on city council, is because she and other people were willing to show that kind of kindness to me and show me opportunities. And so this kind of stuff is what gets me excited about our city and government. So with that, I want to, if folks want to raise their hands or put any questions in the chat. I know we're a little bit over, but I think it's worth just having a little bit more discussion if there are questions that people have about arts and culture.
Do you see why I keep telling Dominic he should just take my job, stop being a board member, and just take just take the job? But truly, any question is wonderful, and we want to make sure that you don't leave today with any confusion or anything that you left unsaid. So even if the question is hard, I urge you to ask it. And if you don't feel comfortable speaking out tonight, please email me. I put that in the chat bubble. I call them bubbles. I realize that's antiquated and I should come up with something else, but we want to make sure that you feel really comfortable understanding how you can engage with a plan. And Dominic, I will confess to getting like a little misty there when you were talking about your 15-year-old. Yeah, this is coming up, and so yeah. I also have Dominic's gift registry for baby, should any of that be interested.
And I think there's a question about when's my next performance. I don't know because of COVID, but you can always find me on Facebook, and I always put everything up there.
And sorry, Leanne, do you want to say anything? I know, Summit County Historical Society is, a wonderful part of our community, and you're also on the ArtsNow board. So just wanted, in case you want to say anything.
Oh, thank you very much. Actually, I wanted to join in because I live in your neighborhood, but also because I wanted to be supportive of Nicole and Dominic. Nicole has been a true warrior for arts and culture in our community, and so I do encourage you all to reach out to her and get involved because it's transitioning our community, because really this is for all of us. And if you don't share your voice, then it's not going to be as inclusive as it could be. And from a historical standpoint, I just want to share that if you're not reaching out to someone, reach out to me and share your story. And your story isn't minimal. I'd like to know how you're doing and what you're doing and what might be different for you or what might be the same. Because at the Summit County Historical Society, we're gathering this information to share with future generations. And so don't think that your history is not important. And please know that history is two things. It's happening all the time, and it's fun. Well, except for during a pandemic, but otherwise.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I was going to agree with you half there. But no, thank you so much, Leanne. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all three of you being here and sharing that with us. And I know we're a little bit over, but folks, if you have other general questions about city government, about any of the things we're working on, about COVID, please reach out to me anytime. at ward8@akronohio.gov, or at a phone number which is on the City Council website. I think that these meetings have helped ground me in, this has been a really difficult process, and over the last few months, and it feels like we're back in those weeks in March when we didn't know what the next week would be, and that can be very scary. But like Leanne said, it is history, and for better and for worse. So hopefully we get through all of it okay, and hope everyone stays safe in this time. Hope everyone's families and loved ones stay safe. I hope we can all try to take care of each other. But thank you all for being here tonight, and look forward to seeing everyone's faces soon, and perhaps one day in person again. So take care, everyone. Good night.
Thank you, Shamus.
Bye, Nicole. Bye, Don.